Hello, hello, hello. Okay, welcome to number 36. Number 36 of the 49 gateways of growth. Number 36 is an extraordinarily important principle. The Baal Shem Tov says that just like there is a mitzvah sasa, he says the way the Bible works is that there are 613 commandments, which are the actual things that we have to do. 248 of them are do's, and 365 of them are don'ts. So for every do, there's a don't. So for example, there is a do commandment, which the do commandment is to, let's say, give charity. The don't do is like don't ignore the poor. There's a do commandment to eat kosher. The don't is don't eat non-kosher, right? Keep the Sabbath, don't break the Sabbath. So what's the don't do of loving your friend, right? The don't do is not hating your friend. And this is really, it's kind of very simple, but it's like the most fundamental, most important thing in life. Because in the end of the day, the way the dark side gets us, I'm not here to be political, but it's a very important point. I remember when Obama, now, basically, I called him the shamer in chief. Before Obama was the president, and this is based on Pew polls, very nonpartisan polling. You can see this. It's called the topography of like the American landscape. Before he was a president, if you just imagine a mountain, and this is literally what Pew poll shows, the right and the left were both basically center. They were like this, okay, a little bit like this, a little bit like that, but they were both in the center of the mountain. After Obama finished with 8 years of making himself as a typical narcissist, that I'm the great one, and really putting a lot of negativity, he said about business owners, you didn't make that. Really? You sure that a business owner didn't make his business? And if yes, what do you care? All this negativity, hatred against Israel, lots and lots and lots of negativity. And what happened was there went basically he radicalized 26% of America, which is millions and millions of people, became basically his cult members. He radicalized them. I never believed, there was only one thing that my guru, the Lubavitch Rebbe, said that I didn't think was true. That was when they asked him if a Holocaust could happen in America, he said tomorrow. Now, obviously, he said spiritually it's not going to happen because everything's really from a spiritual basis, but from a psychological basis, could a person like Hitler came to a normal country and he made them into terrorists and killers. Could a normal person do that? And I never thought that could happen in America because I know Americans, I grew up, but I was wrong. I saw how one individual came and he kind of, through exactly what Hitler did, all this negative speech, convinced all these people, many of them very bright people, but people have a tendency, as we said before, just to follow their leaders, that the other side is evil and they're irredeemable and we're the good ones. And it's not even a question in my mind that a lot of people on the left would have no problem just murdering millions and millions of people on the right. It was just, there's always 3 steps to a Holocaust, 3 steps to a narcissist, an evil narcissist that wants to kill people. The first step is they have to have this inner, he wrote a book called Dreams of My Father. In other words, he felt abandoned. And people that have this hatred towards others through jealousy, which creates the desire to kind of annihilate them, that's the step number 1, that desire. You don't do anything without desire. You don't go to your fridge unless you're either bored or you're hungry. And step number 2 is you have to create an army because you can't do it on your own. So you just really express all this kind of hatred, exactly what Hitler did, and then you have an army of people. And then you have to, go to war, whatever, Hitler actually did that. But there are many people that do that. It's happening with Arab terrorism, which is really Islamic terrorism. Muhammad had a great hatred. Lawrence of Arabia said that the Arabs are xenophobic. I think that's the word, or xenophobic. I think it's xenophobic because they have an ancient shame that Yishmael got kicked out of the home. And if you say that, they'll actually be upset, which shows that it still hurts them, because if you said somebody landed from the moon, they would say, what are you talking about? In other words, it doesn't trigger. But when something is triggering the person, it means that they feel that pain. Long story short, I actually did a little, I don't know what you would call it, like a little thing with a former Arab terrorist. To his credit, he converted to Christianity. He said, I couldn't believe that I thought that was holiness. And he was a murderer. And eventually, he realized, no, that this is God's plan. God wants it to be Jews. He wants it to be Gentiles. He wants us all to be good people, which is a tremendous accomplishment, because people that come to that society, they've just been brainwashed to kill. And we're not talking about a few people. We're talking minimum 50 million people, heads of states. It's not a joke in any way, shape, or form. Iran has created this axis of bullies and evil. And if not for God's help, right now, where I am right now, would have been overrun. It's just miracles upon miracles that we're alive to tell the tale. So the main point, and getting back to the main point, is that, this visceral negativity and that kind of, desire that others should feel the same amount of suffering that they're feeling, which is really behind the jealousy. So I remember seeing a poll, which was that 18% of America, I don't know at which point, they were angry at Obama. And that made me very sad, because I realized he had succeeded. You understand? If a bully gets you to be upset at him, then the bully has succeeded. Because the bully has no other agenda. He doesn't have an agenda. He doesn't care about what's right. I remember there was this community that came. We were living in South Africa. For whatever reason, this community had kind of rocked up at our doorstep, like a whole community of people. And many of us took them into our homes. I personally had about 3 people sleeping in my home. And this one guy, he's like, he actually had a big kind of Facebook group. And he wrote a very critical article against the community for not hosting these people. Very critical. But it turns out that he took the apartment that I was living in after I left. And you know what he did? He kicked out the people. So the point is, the people that are busy criticizing others, they're not good people. They're not standing up for justice. What they're really doing is creating hatred. And that's why the whole Black Lives Matter, all of this stuff of equality, it's all garbage. I lived in South Africa, where the government literally is stealing 30% of companies. If equality is true, then it's equal white and black. But if what equality means is that now Black people, and again, I'm not a racist, so I don't talk in these terms, but I'm just trying to bring out a point, that Black people now should dominate white people. Well, that's not equality. That's called master and slave. And you're just reversing the process. So you actually are not a free person. You're not a liberal. You're not an enlightened person. What you are is a slave owner. You just want to reverse it. And so we have to understand that there are, unfortunately, negative people in this world. And it's because they've been hurt one way or another, and they're jealous that you're okay. And this happens even parents and children, even people that love each other. Even with a wife, sometimes once in a while, she'll go crazy. And a lot of that doesn't have to do with what the husband did. It has to do with her emotions, how she's feeling. And it's vice versa. I don't want to go too deep down the dark hole here. But basically, we are good people, but when we're jealous, we're evil. There's a book by a psychiatrist, Dr. Joseph Burka, and he's based on what's called Kleinian psychology. Now, Kleinian psychology is all about the concept of jealousy, and the antidote to jealousy is gratitude. But the point is that jealousy is very evil. He has a book called The Tyranny of Malice. Just a simple example. There's a lady with her girlfriend, and her girlfriend has this baby. They're by some river somewhere. And the lady literally pushes the baby and the carriage into the river. And when they asked her, why did you do that? She says, I don't know. I was overcome by this wave of jealousy. So jealousy creates a hatred against somebody that didn't hurt you. There were 3 ladies that were called spinsters. They never got married. And one of their sisters, the older women, she got married. And so the 2 sisters, once she came to visit them, they literally locked her up in a closet for years until they found her. You understand what's going on here? And that's a sister. They lived together. But they became jealous. And that's the power of jealousy. And that's why in Judaism, it's so important, to always express gratitude. Because as a friend of mine said, you can have gratitude or you can have attitude, but you can't have both. If you don't have gratitude, you can have attitude, because without gratitude, then you feel, oh, it's not fair that that person has that. I should have that. And then you get upset, and then literally you want to take it away from them. A friend of mine, he once said that a Russian told him, he said, the difference between you Americans and us is that if we see somebody, I guess this was maybe a little bit before, if we see somebody, they have a Cadillac, we say, oh, go running to the KGB. Listen, the guy, he was a terrible capitalist. He got a Cadillac. He says, in America, you say, oh, I want that. I'm going to work hard and get it. So the main point, this was all an introduction to the main point. The main point is we have to forgive. The studies show if you're holding on to anger and resentment, you're killing yourself, because you have an ability to lower your blood pressure, which is a very important thing, by 30% just by getting rid of anger. And that's what this exercise is all about. I want you to take a piece of paper. Yeah, you take a piece of paper and write down all the people that hurt you. Because if you can remember it, you're holding on to resentment. Now, as we said before, you have a choice. You can either confront them. You can say, I'm upset that you did this. It's not about vengeance, but confront them. Or you can forgive them. And if you can, just write, I forgive you. Because ultimately, they did it because they were jealous of you. And your job is not to allow them to affect you. So write it down, the people that hurt you, and write, I forgive these people. And by doing that, you're going to feel a heck of a lot better. Let's do a meditation. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, breathe in God and goodness and kindness. Breathe out negativity. Breathe in love and hope. Breathe out hopelessness. And breathe in joy and harmony. And breathe out anything that's going to make you feel like you're less than someone else. And now, let's say a prayer. Please, God, I've been hurt. A lot of people have been hurt. Please, God, let us let go of the pain. Let us let go of the shame. Let us enter into a state of a happiness. We wish to be happy. And if we hold on to this anger and resentment, we cannot be happy. Please, God, allow us to have pure joy and love and not any negative emotions and hate. We'll come out of the meditation with 3, 2, and a 1.